Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Monica McCoubry, and I'm with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. And today we're going to be doing our second installment of the Science of series, webinar series. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite things, which is scat, or poop, if you want to be technical about it. So what we're going to do is I am going to record all of you guys, just so you know, where we're going to record the presentation so that people can see it again. So we'll go ahead and get started, and then I'll probably give you guys maybe 5 or so minutes at the end. So if you have any questions then, please let me know. Otherwise, I am the only one doing this today, so it was kind of hard to read the chat box and answer questions and do the talk, but I will give time at the end for everyone to ask questions. So today we're going to be talking about SCAT, and we will go ahead and get started here. I'm going to share my screen with you. We will do that. Hopefully everyone sees my Science of SCAT slides here. Hopefully nothing embarrassing. All right. All right. Hopefully everyone sees the Science of. So we're going to go ahead. Like I said, this is a 6-week series that we're going to be talking about different nature and natural things and animal stuff that we're going to be talking about. So this week is going to be animal scat. Next week, we're going to talk about bites and stings, and we'll talk about that at the end here later. But again, this is the second installment of the Science of series. So today we're going to be talking about animal scat. And first off, I want to talk about what is scat. So if anyone knows what scat is, it's just a fancy word for poop, is pretty much what it is. So there's lots of different things that people call it. Some people call it droppings, some people call it feces. There's bad words, we won't get into those, but it's basically poop. Scat is poop. When we talk about scat, we usually are talking about animals. So not humans, but animals like mountain lions and deer and rabbits and those kinds of things. So everyone poops. If you don't, that you might want to get that checked out, but we all do it. Humans don't necessarily do it on the ground like animals do in open areas. But if you're an organism and you eat food or you ingest something, you have to get rid of that waste at some point in your life. So every organism does it. They have to get that waste out. So every organism is going to be able to poop. When we talk about scat, people, they know it smells and it could be brown, it could be lots of different colors, but what actually is it when it comes out of animals? So about 75% of that scat is going to be water. There's a lot of water in our bodies. We get rid of a lot of water. We drink water. We eat food that has moisture in it. We have to get rid of that water somehow. So a lot of it comes out of scat. And then that remaining 25% is a combination of some fiber, it's bacteria, it's cells, it's mucus, it's a lot of stuff that we just need to get rid of out of our body, and that is how it comes out. They always say that you are what you eat. So food plays that primary role in making sure what color your scat is going to be. Normal colors are going to be kind of a brown, dark brown, light brown. When you get into like the greens and the reds, there's something wrong. We'll get into that later. Again, this might be getting a little bit into the weeds about scat and might be getting a little uncomfortable for some people to talk about poop, but this is the science of. We're getting in depth about scat. So we'll go ahead and keep going. All right, this is one of my favorite pictures. If you guys have ever seen this picture floating around, this guy was trying to get pictures of some foxes, and there was one fox that just decided to scat or poop right in front of him. So, all right, so why do we care about learning about scat? It's gross, it's disgusting, it smells. Why do we care about it? So scat is super easily accessible. If you walk out or do a hike or go outside in your backyard, you're pretty much guaranteed to find some kind of scat. So when you're hunting, when you're hiking, when you're out with your kids, you're gonna find it somewhere. And it's an easy way to know that animals have been in your area. So when you talk about animals, you might never see an animal on a hike, but you might see some houses, you might find some body parts like feathers, you might smell animals, you might hear animals, or you might find their scat. It's pretty much the telltale sign that an animal has been there. It's also very helpful in identifying animals. The only problem with scat is that some scat looks very similar between animals, and sometimes it gets harder to tell which animal left which scat. It's not as helpful as tracks. Tracks are very helpful. You can really pinpoint then what animal you're finding, but scat can also tell us a lot when it's fresh, mind you. It can change a lot if it's been rained on or if it's snowed or if it's super old. It's going to change the composition of the scat, but it's still going to be helpful to understand what animals have been there. It really helps biologists too. If you've ever been out with a biologist in a field, you know that they get super excited when they see scat, because that means that the animal that they're looking for or trying to find has been there, and it's a telltale sign that that animal is in that area. All right, so what exactly can scat tell us? When we find scat, what can we figure that out from? Well, you can tell a lot. You can find out an animal's diet. So what have they been eating? You guys know that there's different types of how animals eat. We have things called carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores. They each eat different things. And then again, that waste comes out in their scat. So if you're a carnivore, like a mountain lion, and you eat a lot of deer, that hair, the bones, all that digestible or indigestible things are going to come out in scat. So looking at an animal scat, you might find some hair in it. If you guys have cats and dogs, have you ever seen cat and dog poop? You know that they lick themselves and they often have lots of hair, and that is not digestible in their stomach, so it comes out in their scat. You can also tell about an animal's habits. We'll talk about this later, but certain animals will scat or poop in the same spot, and we know a lot about that because they do the same thing over and over. They're creatures of habit. You can also tell animals and their movement. So if you find scat from the same animal in 16 different miles apart or 16 different areas, we know that that animal is moving lots of different places, and that really helps biologists understand animal movements and where these animals are going and coming from. You can also tell what animals are around. Again, if I walk outside my door and I see porcupine scat, I'm going to know that there's a porcupine that's been there sometime recently. You can also see if animals are sick. I'm sure we've all had, at some point in our life, we've had the flu, or we have had some kind of thing that makes us not feel good, and we get diarrhea, or you've had diarrhea, or your dog's had diarrhea, something. So you can tell really quickly if that animal is healthy by looking at their scat. You can also tell who is occupying a certain territory. You can say relationships between animals in a certain area. DNA is also a huge thing. You can look at their genetic health. So out of that 25% content that we talked about earlier, that rest of that scat, there's part of your DNA in there. So your DNA is kind of a blueprint about what you're going to look like, how tall you're going to be, what color eyes you're going to have. So we can tell a lot about that animal's genetics by looking at the DNA that we find in the scat. One of the things that really helps with, and we'll talk about this later, is Nebraska Game and Parks does scat surveys with our mountain lion population, and that is something that really helps us understand how many mountain lions we have, where they are, and if they're related to each other. And also, scat is a great way to observe an animal and learn about an animal without ever having to trap it or dart it or even really look at that animal. You can find so much information by just looking at their scat. All right, so when we talk about scat, you might think that it's all just one big pile, but it actually has lots of different shapes, and we can see which animal left what by looking at those shapes. So a lot of animals like rabbits, I'm sure all of us have seen rabbit poop, the little small pellets. They're actually little spherical shapes, and they are flattened on the top and the bottom. If you look at rodents, if you've ever seen mouse poop, it's really small and it's elongated. If you look at dogs, bears, or raccoons, they're gonna have long, what we call thick cords. It's just long shaped poop. And then if you look at cats, they're gonna have long thick cords. Again, if you guys have domestic house cats, you've probably seen that before. The weasel family, they actually have cords that loop around back on themselves, and they're really long and skinny. Birds are a little different because they have semi-liquid poop, and we'll get into this later, but they have the black and the white parts. So it's a little different, but bird poop is pretty distinguishable. If you find it, and I'm sure you find it a lot, you know that a bird has been around. And then we'll also talk about reptiles and amphibians. There's lots of different shapes depending on what animal you're looking at. All right, so how do you identify the scat when you find it? So mammals are like the biggest category that you're gonna find. There's lots of different types of mammals, and they leave lots of different types of scat. So rabbits, this is one where I'm sure everyone has seen rabbit poop. You might have a rabbit, but I'm sure that you've seen them in your garden, in your backyard. Some dogs eat rabbit poop, it just happens. But rabbits are what we call lagomorphs. They're in a special category all on their own. People think that they're related to mice. They're not. They are distantly-ish related, but they are two completely separate categories. So their bodies are actually unable to get all of the necessary vitamins from their fiber diet. So if you ever watched a rabbit, they eat a lot of lettuce, they eat a lot of grass, forbs, grasses, lots of different things. So they eat a lot of undigestible things. So they have a unique digestive system that actually lets them poop out 2 different kinds of scat. The first one, what they're going to do is we call them fecal pellets. So they're tiny little hard, compact, like little rocks. And then the second ones, we call those cecotropes. And you guys look at the picture, you can definitely tell the difference between the two. Cecotropes kind of look like a little blackberry, I guess, or a raspberry, whatever you want to call them. But what happens is they're made from that undigested food and they're passed through the rabbit and then they re-ingest them. Sounds very disgusting, but it's just an extra way for that rabbit and that animal to get that secondary nutrients from their poop. You guys might have seen your dog at one time eat its poop. It's a little different. Not really sure why dogs eat their poop, but it's not the same as the reason that rabbits do it. Rabbits do it to get those extra nutrients and those vitamins out of their fecal pellets. Dogs do it for totally different reasons. So rabbits practice what we call coprophagia, which is eating of feces. Again, totally normal for rabbits, maybe not for dogs, but those cecotropes, those little blackberry looking things, they contain more protein and vitamins than those fecal pellets do. So they want to make sure that they are able to eat those to get those extra nutrients back into their body. All right, so deer. Whenever people find deer and rabbit pellets, they look very similar to each other, but they're very different. So deer also are herbivores, so they eat a ton of plant material. But again, they have small little round pellets. They're very similar looking to rabbits, but they're more oval shaped and they're slightly pointed at one end. When you look at a rabbit one, they're again those cecotropes that are compact together, or those little pellets are hard, almost little rocks. When deer do it, they usually pile it in one big clump, forming usually a solid scat. So it looks different when they eat different types of foods. So for instance, if deer eat leaves, acorns, twigs, their poops are going to be round and separate and really firm and compacted with each other. If they eat things like grasses, apples, alfalfa, clover, they're going to be more lumpy. So again, there's great information that we can find from that deer population. If we look at their scat and we can say that it is really separate and it's firm, packed together, we can probably say that those deer have been eating leaves, acorns, twigs. So again, that helps biologists figure out where deer are, what they're eating, and their movements and their habits. So if you think that your dog poops a lot, because I feel like my dog poops a lot, like 4 or 5 times a day, deer, they poop an average 13 times a day, and every time they poop, they do about 93 pellets. So for you math people out there, take 93 times 13, and that's how many little individual poops on average deer do a day. That's quite a bit. That's why you find a lot of deer poop out there, because we have a lot of deer. So every deer is doing that many thousands of little pellets every single day. When you look at their color, again, normal colors are going to be green, brown, or black. They're going to be green because deer eat a lot of green material, plants, forbs, grasses. So that green either indicates that they eat a lot of grasses and green stuff, or it could mean that the bile was not broken down enough. So if you that had diarrhea, or have had kids that had diarrhea, or dogs, or whoever, you know that when they poop, it comes out really fast. It does not go through your digestive system properly. It goes really fast, and that is what makes it green. If it's brown or black, that sometimes could mean that there's dead red blood cells and bile still left in that scat. All right, raccoons. These are very easy to find. We get a lot of people asking what kind of poop this is. This is like the quintessential picture of a raccoon poop. They eat lots of berries and mulberries and insects. So this one is where they've eaten a ton of mulberries, and those seeds have come through, those undigestible parts have come through into their scat. So raccoons are a little different. They're what we call omnivores, though they eat meat, plants, both things. Their poops are going to be a little bit larger. Raccoons are fairly large animals. So they're going to be brown or black, and they're going to be a tube shape with blunt on both ends. So they're going to be almost like a little Tootsie Roll is a great way to describe them. They're fairly fat and short. They're often going to be found with whatever they've eaten last. So undigested berries, seeds, A lot of times, if you find raccoons that have eaten a lot of insects, you'll find the exoskeletons in the poop. And so that's that hard casing on an insect, their shell pretty much. They're going to be very sparkly. So they're going to have sparkly poops, just like bats do. We also call raccoons latrine animals. So they like to kind of stick to one special spot where they poop. And a lot of times raccoons will sit together in community groups. So they're lots of different babies, there's different adults kind of together as a community. They all kind of pick one area and then that is where they like to poop. It's often really, really occurring. So it's very easy to find when you find a raccoon herd or a group of them. They can carry pathogens such as roundworms. That's one thing that kind of people have to be careful about. The little eggs in the roundworms are passed through the feces of those infected raccoons. And then if you either touch it accidentally or inhale those eggs, you can become infected as well. Something else that you also have to take into consideration is dogs and cats can be vulnerable to canine distemper, which raccoons could have as well. But again, if you vaccinate your dogs and your cats for that canine distemper, it's nothing to worry about. All right, mice. This is everyone's like least favorite thing to talk about because when you find mice poop, it's usually in your house or in your garage or somewhere where you do not want to find it. So mice are omnivores, which again means they eat meat and plant material. Each pellet is going to look similar to a grain of rice, but it's going to be more dark brown or black colored. They also poop a lot, 50 to 100 pellets a day. And it doesn't sound like a lot compared to those deer, but again, mice are like this big and the amount of poops that they're doing compared to their size is actually quite a bit. They also, mice and rats kind of get grouped together as kind of like frogs and toads and snakes and reptiles and frogs. They kind of get grouped together as one. Mice and rats are totally different from each other. Rats do not have a gallbladder, mice do. So that main function of a gallbladder is to store the bile, which helps break down that fat. And you can tell in the different types of poop. So again, looking at their scat is a great way to say, okay, this is a rat, this is a mouse. So their poops are gonna look very different from each other. So just like raccoons, mice can also carry lots of different harmful bacteria, diseases, viruses in their scat. Hantavirus is something that we have to be considerate of when you clean up scat. So again, like any other animal, no matter what it is, you want to make sure you wear gloves, wash your hands, lots of different things. Just be cautious about it. So if you inhale, again, those particles in those contaminated poops, you could possibly get this hantavirus from the mice. So again, very rare, but just be careful when you do pick up or around those kind of scat. All right, red fox. So foxes, coyotes, dogs, they're all related to each other. Foxes are going to be omnivores, but they tend to lean more towards being carnivorous. So they eat more meat materials than they do berries and seeds and that kind of thing. So their scat is usually going to be dark brown. It can contain hair, bones, insects, seeds, whatever they've eaten, those, again, undigested parts. And the picture that you see over here is very old scat. It's white, it has a ton of hair in it. So whatever we ate or whatever they ate, it had a lot of hair on it. It often is ropey and tapered, which means that it kind of like comes to a point and it's segmented, like kind of like your dog poop that you see. And it has a really bad kind of musky, skunky smell. These are territorial animals and they tend to make it known that they are in an area. They will urinate and they'll defecate on a certain area to defend their prey and to defend their territory. Foxes and coyotes, they look very similar in their scat, but one big difference is that foxes will poop on an object, like a fence post or a stump or a rock or something like that. They're gonna make it known that they are there. Coyotes are a little bit different, but that is the main difference between these two. Coyotes will leave it in the middle of a trail. Foxes will leave it on an object. So if you ever see that, you're gonna know that's a fox, that's a coyote. All right, so coyotes, again, they look very similar to foxes. Foxes are gonna be a little smaller than coyotes, but they're in the same family. Coyotes, again, are omnivores, but they lean way more towards being carnivorous. It just kind of depends on the time of the year, what they're gonna eat. So if they're gonna be more carnivorous, it's probably more in the summertime, in the fall. In the winter, they might eat some berries just because that's kind of what's around at the time. Their poops are going to be a little bit longer, about 4 to 6 inches, again, just like your dog. They're going to be dark brown. They're going to be twisted. So when I say twisted, like twisting your hair, you can see in that picture how they're twisted from each other. All right. Foxes also, like we talked about, they leave their scat on an object. Coyotes are going to leave it in like a middle of a trail or a park or a runway from an animal. They want you to know that they've been there and that is their area. All right, not sure what's happening with the arrows here. So sorry about that. I have no idea what's going on. So when we talk about weasels, minks, and skunks, these are going to be all in the same family. So weasels, minks, skunks. I'm so sorry. I have no idea what's going on with these arrows here. But weasels are all going to leave similar types of scat. The differences are going to be depending on that species. So scat is going to be thin and long, very, very thin and long. And that weasel scat is going to contain very small parts of bones or hair. And they're all going to be carnivores. So all these guys are going to have things that they've eaten in the past. Again, I'm so sorry. I have no idea. I'm going to try and stop sharing my screen, and then if I can see what's going on. Annotating your screen, might need to go up to the view options. I'm so sorry, guys. I have no idea what's going on. If you are drawing arrows, it'd be great if you could stop. I appreciate it. To view options. I'm so sorry, guys. All right, looks like they're gone now. So, all right. All right. So with weasels, you're going to be able to find them on logs and stumps, and there's going to be lots of different outcroppings. So this is a really great picture. You can see where you're going to be able to find them. So sorry, guys. All right. Again, if you are the one coloring on my screen, that would be awesome if you could please not do that. All right. So when we talk about mountain lions, it's one of my favorite things to talk about because they are kind of a controversial issue here in Nebraska. So mountain lions, like all big cats, we call them obligatory carnivores, which means they are strictly carnivores. Even the cats, the house cats that you guys have in your house, they're carnivores too. Their food is specifically designed to meet their special digestive system where they can only process all that meat. So their scat tends to be more segmented, kind of like a dog, but it's going to be even more. They will also deposit their scat in prominent locations like trails, dirt roads, near kill caches. Only males will usually do that because, again, that is their territory and they want to be able to be the ones to let you know that they're there. That's their category, or that's their territory, that's their kill, do not touch it. Scat can also be used as a scent marker as well. So big cats will often leave these things called scratch piles. Basically, it's just a mound of dirt where they will build up leaves in a shallow hole, and they will often urinate on them or defecate on them, scat on them, to again let males know, stop trespassing in my area. This is my place. These are my girls. Don't touch this area. This is my place. So earlier we talked about how scat is very helpful when we talk about mountain lions. So I kind of wanted to take a second here and talk about our mountain lion scat surveys that we do at Game and Parks, which I think are really cool. So within Nebraska, we have 3 main populations of mountain lions, and they're really hard to find, and they have a huge range on them. So biologists want to know how many we have in each of these populations. So several weeks in May and June, we actually hire special dogs that have been trained to sniff out mountain lion scat. So there's bomb sniffing dogs, there's food sniffing dogs, we get the scat sniffing dogs. So these guys will literally go around in places where they think mountain lions are, find scat, and then the biologists will actually take samples of that scat, take it to a genetics lab and figure out, okay, this mountain lion scat is different than this mountain lion scat. So they are completely separate animals. This mountain lion scat and this mountain lion scat were found 10 miles apart. So we know that those animals are related to each other. So it really helps us kind of figure out how many mountain lions we have, where they go, what are they eating. Again, it's a great non-invasive way to figure out information about those animals. So in 2019 was the last time they did that survey. They had a total of 34 different individual animals. These are adults and kittens. But if you think about it, there's a lot of territory, very remote territory in Nebraska, in the Pine Ridge, northern western Nebraska. We're not going to find every single piece of scat. We're not going to find every single animal scat, and every scat that we do find, it might not be able to take a genetic sample from it. So it's a good guess, is what I would call it, a really good guess. It was actually down from 59 in 2017. All right. Again, I am very sorry about who's ever drawing on my presentation. I have no idea how to do this here. So it says annotate and then clear. I will try that one more time for you guys. Again, I am so sorry. And if you are the one drawing on it, it's not funny anymore. So, all right, turkey. So when we talk about birds, their scat's a little bit different. So if you've ever looked at bird poop, it definitely does not look like mountain lion scat or rabbit turds or anything like that. They're going to be very different. So turkey scat is going to be brown, cylindrical, and pretty small. It's also going to be relatively compacted together. If you guys have ever looked at goose poop, it's kind of the same thing. So turkeys, they have gizzards inside of their digestive system, and they basically pulverize anything that they eat, and that helps with their digestive process. If you also look at the picture, you'll notice that there is a white cap on the end of it. For some reason, turkeys and geese, that is kind of just their signature as far as their scat. So like all birds, they output liquid waste, as well at the same time, from the same opening, they will do the kind of the solid waste as well. So that uric acid is passing through their kidneys, and it forms those chalky white crystals on the end. So that's why there's that white part at the end. It's at the very end because that is the last thing to come out. One thing that's neat, and I didn't know this till during this presentation, is that males and females, turkeys, have different shapes of their poop. So when you find them, you can say, well, there's a male, there's a gobbler, or there's a hen over there. So males will kind of have a J-shaped scat, while the female, the hen, will have a spiral-shaped scat. And then their scat, as the turkey gets older, the diameter actually increases. So when you find young turkey scat, it's going to be very, very small in diameter, but then an older turkey scat is going to have a thicker diameter. All right, so what do we talk about other birds? That white stuff that you see in your cars, the sometimes you get pooped on if you're walking, that white kind of black stuff. It's very similar to other birds. So these are going to be things like orioles, pigeons, sparrows, starlings. All these birds are going to leave this kind of white looking pasty stuff. So birds are very similar to reptiles and amphibians. They eliminate their waste through something called the cloaca. So they have one hole per se where both the pee and the poop come out. So mammals, we excrete nitrogenous waste, mostly in the form of what's called urea. But birds actually convert that to uric acid or guanine, which reduces the water loss. So they don't want to lose a bunch of water, so they actually convert that urea to something else. So what it does is it forms that kind of sticky white paste like you see in the picture here. So sometimes you see the black and the white together. The white is going to be the pee, if you will, and the black spot's going to be the poop. Since they do both things together, that's why you see black and white. So a little bit different, kind of interesting, I think. All right. Next page. All right, so I want to talk to you really quick about reptiles because I think reptiles are super interesting and neat. So their scat is going to be very similar looking to birds. If you can see, this is a very large snake scat. This is huge. So this is clearly not from Nebraska, but it's the picture that I could find. So all snakes, no matter what kind, where they are living, they are all carnivores. They eat meat or other animals. So their scat is going to have remnants of their last prey. So if your snake ate a bird, you might find talons, you might find feathers. If your snake ate another snake, you might find scales, you might find fangs. Whatever they eat is going to be, again, deposited through their body into their scat. They usually contain somewhat of a log looking shape like normal animal scat, like mammal scat, but they're also going to have a slimy kind of a white smear is what we call it, and that is that urea smear. So again, just like birds, snakes have one opening called the cloaca, the vent, whatever you want to call it. That is where they possess that single opening so that the fecal matter and the uric acid can be out together. So very, very similar to birds. So their digestive system is kind of off the charts, interesting to me. But after they swallow their prey, it takes them about 3 to 10 days to metabolize their food. So as you know, snakes, they will eat a total animal. They don't chew it or break it into pieces, but it will sit in their body and the digestive juices will just over time break it down. So during this time, they have to be they're kind of vulnerable. They, especially a couple days after they have eaten, or even hours after they're eaten, if a predator comes up to them and they get scared, they will actually regurgitate their prey because it's heavy and it hurts them trying to slither away. So if it helps them to regurgitate their prey to slither away, that is more important to them than being able to hold on to their body and being able to hold on to their prey. So it's kind of interesting, but again, those digestive juices are so strong, they can break down things like horns, antlers, hooves, scales, teeth, beaks, all those different things, those keratinized things that sometimes they eat from. All right, one thing I want to talk about because we get a lot of questions on this, it's not scat, but it's still really cool. Owl pellets. It's not puke, it's not poop, they're called pellets. So many bird groups like owls, raptors, crows, ravens, jays, flycatchers, they produce scat along with what we call cough or pellets sometimes. So birds pass their digestive juices through the stuff that they've already eaten. And again, all of those indigestible things like hair, bones, fur, beaks, talons, all the stuff that they cannot digest, it accumulates in their gizzard, which is kind of the top part of their stomach, and it's compressed together, and then they will cough it up later. So if you've ever digested an owl pellet, you know that it looks like a little baked potato, kind of like that. But when you look through it and start dissecting it, you notice there's hair, there's bones, there's fur, there's all these cool things in there that they just can't digest, and that is what they will cough up. So those pellets are going to be gray, they're going to be spherical, and they're going to be tapered at both ends. When they're fresh, they're actually going to be covered in mucus because, again, they're coughing it up, and they're usually dark black. They are deposited singly, so animals will only do one at a time. And then the diameter of the animal's throat determines how big that owl pellet will be. So when we order our pellets, they're from barn owls. So barn owls are not the largest animals in the world, so they're going to be kind of medium or small. You can get large and you can get minis. They generally produce about 2 pellets a day, and they do it right before they fly. Again, it's extra weight that they don't want when they fly, so they just kind of cough it up. All right, so that was our information on scat. I will give you guys a few minutes here if you have questions, but really quick, I want to talk about next week, same time, 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. We're going to be talking about bites and stings. So these are going to be insects. We're going to talk about venomous snake and anti-venom and all these cool little things and bite force and that kind of stuff. So really exciting for next week, Thursday, July 21st, 3 to 4 p.m. Again, you can register from our Facebook page, from the Game and Parks Facebook page, the listserv, wherever you found it. In the next 4 weeks, if you can't make it, next week we'll do the science of predators at the end of July. We'll do the science of animal love, and then the science of animal myth. So again, if you couldn't make it today, or you know that someone that would really like to view these videos, they will be online. If you go to our Game and Parks page and search online education, you will be able to find the videos of the same thing that I talked about today online. So I will get those posted probably tomorrow and or Monday. So if you know someone that would like to share or share this with, that would be great. So otherwise, that's all I have. But if you guys have questions, I would be more than happy to do this with you. I'm gonna unmute stuff here. All right. Let's see if I can unmute you here really fast. What is taking so long? All right, I'm gonna unmute you all. So if you guys have questions, I would love to be able to answer them if I can. If not, thank you again for watching. I appreciate it. And remember to join us next week for bites and stings. All right, so if you guys have questions, I'll stick around for a little bit. I'll check the chat here really fast. Do insects scat? Yes, good question. They do. You just don't notice it very much. They're not large animals, but yes, they absolutely scat. They have waste to get rid of. They eat food. They have to get rid of that stuff. Good question. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you guys. Yes, good questions.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's your question?
My question is, I forgot it.
You forgot? All right, well, if you remember, let me know.
I remember.
All right,
More
what'd you?
facts than a question, but I saw a raccoon poop on a hike.
What did it look like? Did it look like the picture I showed you, or was it different?
I didn't take a very good look at it.
Okay, well, I don't blame you. A lot of us do not.
Let's stop for Back to the Future. Come on, Marty.
Someone asked, how can you learn so much from SCAT? So if you weren't able to join us early on, we talked about looking at SCAT. You can figure out animals and where they're moving to. You can figure out animal DNA. You can figure out how old that animal is. You can figure out where they're moving. So there's so much that you can learn from SCAT. That's why people get so excited when they see it. Good question. Yeah, someone said that tomato hornworm poop is very large, larger than some other insects, and looks like guinea pig food pellets. So yeah, the larger the insect, the larger the animal, the larger the poop they're gonna have. For instance, like bison, you guys ever seen bison or cow poop? It's huge because they're huge animals. Good stuff.
My phone
You guys ever had, yeah, caterpillar poop is called frass. Thank you, Jamie. If you guys ever raised caterpillars, you know that they poop a lot because they eat a lot. So yeah, insects definitely poop. All right, I'll give you guys maybe a couple more minutes. Otherwise, that's all I got for you. I really appreciate everyone being so patient today. Thank you very much. I know we had some technical difficulties, but next week, same time, Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, we will talk about bites and stings. I haven't done my research yet, but we're going to talk about things like bite force of different animals that we have here in Nebraska. We'll talk about stings. We'll talk about venomous snakes that we have and the different types of toxins that they produce. So it's going to be really cool. I'm excited for that one. Someone asked, do frogs scat? Yes, they do. Their scat looks kind of like a log, like a tootsie, I don't know, like one of those skinny Tootsie Rolls. It's kind of a cool way to describe what it looks like, but it's going to be way more mushy. They eat a lot of things like crickets and insects, small things like that. Our frogs here in the office, when they scat, you can sometimes even see the wings from the crickets still left in their scat, because again, they're those undigestible things that just pass right through them. Are there any animals that don't scat? Ooh, I don't know of any. As far as I know, if they have waste and they eat food, they have to poop sometime. If they don't, again, that's something they want to get checked out. But yes, I don't think there are any animals that don't scat. Someone do ID photo sent to you. I can try. Depends on what you're doing. If I can't figure it out, I will send it on to one of our biologists and I can get back to you. So yeah, if you have photos, or what you can do is we have an email address where one of our naturalists will address questions. It's I'll type it in the thing here for you guys, but it's NGPC wild what's up at Nebraska. Yeah, if you guys have any nature-related questions, you can email ngpc.wildwhatsup@nebraska.gov. And Lauren, our naturalist, who is amazing, will get back to you. with your questions answered. And you might even see them in a video when she makes them the next week. So if you email that and say what your name is, where you're from, and how old you are, she'll give you a shout out in the video. So make sure you email all your questions that you have to ngpc.wildwhatsup@nebraska.gov. And if you guys need it, I typed it in the chat box as well. All right. Well, I'm going to head off here, but if you guys have any more questions, please feel free to email me or get in contact with Game and Parks some way. I really appreciate you guys today. Thank you. We had over 60 people that came, so I really appreciate you guys taking your time out of 3 o'clock on a Thursday. So thank you very much, and hope you guys have a great rest of your week. So thank you.